Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Now normally after a big update, we wait about a month or two and we get a bunch of battle racing changes, and it seems like update 1.79 is no different. In July 2018, we're going to be getting a bunch of new battle ratings. Now, the thing is, when it comes to this, these are not implemented in the game yet, but they will be implemented pretty soon. The last time this happened for update 1.77, I believe only one of the changes actually happened when it came to... They basically chucked out all the new numbers for the BRs, and then only one actually changed after that fact. So, a lot of the time it's worth looking at these and taking them as concrete, as coming to the game. So, Stoner says, we are implementing planned BR changes for ground vehicles and aircraft. This time we have paid special attention to modern ground vehicles and very efficient pre-top machines such as the Chieftain Mark III and the Leopard A1 with stabilizer and powerful ammo. I agree with the A1 idea. The Chieftain, not so much, and the reason why that is even though the Chieftain, its default shell is the best shell it gets, so you don't have to pay for it when you fire it, one of the biggest issues with it is it isn't a one-shot kill shot the majority of the time, and also the reload isn't the best. It's also an incredibly slow tank, and because of all these factors, the stock grind for it is incredibly annoying, and it is one of the chief tanks I point to when I talk about how the stock BR of the Chieftain should be different to the fully done-up BR of the Chieftain. The Mark III in itself is you need 33,000 modification points or research points in order to research its parts modification. Now, that is a ridiculous amount. Go and look at any other 80, 8377, and it's very hard to find a tank where you need that much RP just to get it started, just to get the modifications rolling on it, meaning that increasing its BR makes it even more impossible. Now, I understand they balance by a fully upgraded vehicle, but it is worth thinking about, especially with the Chieftain, that this thing should have a lower BR at lower levels when it has a more stock set, and then once it hits a certain level, it should be up BR'd. It would be lovely to see a thing to be implemented like that, because it would benefit a hell of a lot of the British vehicles that I really like. These changes will allow less efficient and modern vehicles to meet far more superior opponents less often, and will not disrupt the balance of top rank battles. Well, that's lovely. And let's go through how they're doing that. So we're going to focus on realistic here. If you want to go through the arcade changes, then, you know, there will be a link in the description for yourself. But since I mainly focus on realistic, I'm going to stick with that. The G56 is getting an increased BR to 5.7 from 5.3. I think this is completely understandable. The G56 is one of the best performing Italian aircraft. All of the Italian fighters fit the meta really well. They have good turns on them, they have good energy retention. The issues that they have is at really high speeds, and also when it comes to being able to boom and zoom. But the majority of people, especially around the 5 and 4 mark, seem to not do that anymore, which is incredibly sad. So the G56 is, with its 320mm with the MG151s, is sat in a place where it is great at dominating. This is why its win rate is so high. This is why its survivability is so high. It also gets on German teams at 5.357, and as you know, with the BF109K4, the lowered D13, D12, and D9, all of those now fight inferior machines to what they did before. So with the G56 at 5.7, it means that it can basically go up against some of the super props, like the Spitfire Griffin Mark 24. Now, not many people really fly the Griffin anymore, or it seems like not many people do, and the reason for that is, of course, it goes up against jets a lot, and nobody likes doing that. The P-51H is another machine that it could face before, but now it should face more. But as I said, with the popularity of 4.7 and 5.0, 5.3 for the Americans, I don't think this change will make that much of a difference to its BR, to what it normally fights, I should say. What would be nice with the G56 is, now that they've increased its BR, to lower the repair cost. The repair cost on the G56 is astronomical, and to be honest, for good reason. It's a really, really good fighter. But overall, having it at such high levels means that they're trying to balance by economy instead of trying to balance by battle rating. Now that they're trying to balance by battle rating, hopefully it gets lowered. The TBD goes down to 1.3. I think it's completely fine. When you look at the SB2U3, I believe it is, it's just a better TBD. So why is the TBD at the same BR? No idea. So now it's at 1.3. That means it'll be a bit more useful in ships. Still has the same problems in aerialistic, and maybe now at 1.3 it can have a ground forces hole it can fill. But overall, it needed to be lowered, but it still won't see play. The Key 45 Otsu, I believe, has been lowered many times. Now it's down to 2.3. This is the one with the dodgy guns on it, the low velocity large guns. It isn't, it's actually quite fun to fly. I still would say the Key 45 Co is better than it. I would actually swap those two. But the Otsu is okay. It has the issue where it comes up against a lot of very maneuverable fighters, and also it doesn't really work well with the Zero dynamic and the J2 dynamic. What it needs is really good supportive fighters behind it, and the Zero and stuff like that is much more aggressive and much more at your face, so the Otsu doesn't really fit at all. So even though that's the case, seeing it lowered in BR, will it see more play? Probably not. I mean, it still has its issues with its guns and also the maneuverability compared to smaller planes. The Breda 88, the P11, is getting down-tiered. Now, I thought it would get down-tiered a hell of a lot earlier, and if you go back to the review of of that plane, I basically just say it's useless. It fills a niche which doesn't need to be filled in aerialistic, and since ground forces for Italy isn't around yet, I said maybe it could be used in Italy ground forces if you have nothing else to use, but it's still going to struggle in aerialistic because its bomb load isn't big enough, it's too heavy, its guns aren't the best, and overall it overheats too much, so seeing it lowered in BR doesn't really surprise me. The HE112 A-0 is going down to 1.7. Those aircraft, the A-0, I suppose the B-0 you could keep up, but the A-0 would need to go down to 1.3, 1.0 to be able to be played. The reason for this is because the HE100 exists, and there's no reason to play the 112s while the 100 exists. The 100 is just a much better aircraft, it's a much better learner for you, it's a much better energy fighter, it's better in every way to the HE112, even in armament. I know a lot of people will disagree, especially when looking at the B-0, but I would rather take the 3 7.92s over the 220s, which weigh down the wings of the B-0, and also mean that you have very low velocity 20s. I don't like them compared to 792s. The majority of stuff you're fighting as well does not have a lot of armor. So even though the 112 gets lowered to keep it in line with the other 112s, it still won't see play. And that's just because there's a dominant force at that BR. Sometimes that's just the case with aircraft. When you look at the P-47 M being where it is means that you see more M's, and also it being premium, then you see the P-51, stuff like that. The C-205 Series 3 is going up. As I said before, all the Italian fighters are really good, especially at, as I said, the turn fighting but also energy fighting part, struggle in the boom and zoom, and I believe the C-205 is the one with the 2 MG-151s, but overall, you could put them all up to like 5.0, that'd still be combat effective, so now it's just working out what you want them to fight it against. So at 4.0 now you go up against some of the higher tier stuff at 5.0, I still think it'll be fine. It's really good at what it's good at. I mean, there's nothing else to really say about it. The A7, the absolute dominator from the east, is going up to 5.3, so it's going up by 0.3. The A7 is an amazing fighter because it's the first Zero which combines the idea of turn fighting with energy fighting, just like the majority of the Italian planes do, but the Zero does it backed up by 20 millimeters, and also a really, really good altitude climber. So with this said, it means the A7M2, you can set yourself up to be able to attack anything. The only thing you struggle against is if P-47s play right and actually stay at high altitudes. The A7 is definitely not as good as them at high altitudes, but generally you drag them down. At 5.3, it means that you'll face more stuff when it comes to Spitfires. But I think the main issue is you run into P-51Hs. And P-51Hs will be able to decimate you. They're faster than you, they'll climb as well as you. The only thing you'll be able to do in an A7 is to turn. But the P-51 with its energy advantages should be able just to loop on you and kill you. But overall, I mean, when I've ever played the A7, it's been great. I generally get up-tiered in it though, so I don't think there'll be that much of a difference. The Key 84 High, 6-6-3, this is the first change that I don't really understand. I understand that for a lot of people, the Key 84 is an impressive machine. I have never felt like it's a good machine though. No, sorry, I shouldn't say that. Not the Key 84, the Key 84 High. The Key 84 Co is a monster. It's a wonderful machine. It matches up really well against P-51s, P-47s, which are the majority of the stuff that you'll fight. It matches up really well against the Russians because you can dive and boom and zoom on them. But the Key 84 High, it's got to a point where the 30s are just not good enough. It's kind of like when which is it? There's one nation where they basically just change the guns on the vehicles, and that means that they get increased BRs depending on the guns. And it could be Italy, it could be another nation. I suppose Germany would be it, with the G10, G14, and then the K4 and stuff. The performance between them is not that much difference, especially G6, G10, G14, and then K4. There's a noticeable difference between the G2 Trop and all the others, but those, there's not that much difference. The playstyle is very similar, the power is very similar. Maybe the K4 is slightly better, but not that much. But when you look at the Key 84 High, literally all it has is extra 30mm, and I don't have an issue with the co-killing stuff. I actually am completely fine with the weapon loadout on the co. So with the High, it's 6.3 now. So that means it'll either face jets, it'll face super props, or it'll get down tiered. If it gets down tiered, it'll be fine. If it is at its tier against super props, they should run rings around it. They really, really should. And the 30s, which are more designed at taking out bombers, will the B-29s will annihilate them, as they have before. There'll be no difference there. So I'm not sure why that's changed. Maybe once again, just like with the G56, this will mean that the Key 84 High will go down in repair cost. It did before, which is nice. It's still quite high, so hopefully that will happen. The ACT-23, now it's going from 7.7 to 8.0. So now it's fallen into the death trap. Once a plane goes 8.0, it basically just means it's a 9.0 aircraft. The reason for this is because there's so many people queuing up 9.0 that they drag up all of the 8.0s into it. The LA-174, which is the main test case I use for this, the LA-174 is a wonderful machine at 8.0. It's also a wonderful machine when it's down-tiered into 7.7 or 7.0, but the majority of the matches, I'd say 9 out of 10, are at 9.0, and you are just worse than your counterparts. You are worse than the MiG-17. You are worse than the MiG-15 bis, so why would I take the 174? LA-200's exactly the same thing. A lot of people praise that machine for being 8.0, until they realize that 8.0 is basically 9.0 in this game, because more people are queuing up for 9.0. It's the human element of matchmaking, something that I've talked about a lot. Now the Yak-23 has fallen into that. I would have been completely fine with the Yak-23 being sat at 7.7. I didn't see an issue with it. It was really good in my ground forces lineup. Basically, it meant that in ground forces you have a really good 7.7 lineup. You have the, I believe, the IS-4M, the T-54s, then you have like the BMP or the ZSU-57-2. That's a monstrous lineup. 3 mediums, a heavy, a good AA, a good light tank. It's insanity. And then you add the Yak-23 to it, so then you add something like, the TU-2, the TU-2S, something like that. you have a stonking lineup. Now that the Yak-23 is at 8.0, it's not going to be that easy. Maybe if the IS-7 comes in, then we might be talking. But in Aerialistic, this just kills it. It kills the Yak-23 just like it killed the LA200 and kills anything that goes at 8.0. Well, I should say moving up to 8.0. So, Yak-23, it was great. Have fun. You will be missed. The F9F2 Panther. So this is an American plane that hasn't really seen the light of day in about 2 or 3 years. The reason for this is because it's not a pure fighter. It's more of a ground attacker. And in Aerialistic, especially at higher tiers, ground attackers are useless when it comes to the meta. And most of the time, fighters are definitely favored. So what you're looking at is Hunter F1s, Canada Air Sabres, the later American Sabres, the F40, I think it is, the Japanese Sabre, basically Sabres and the Hunter, and then the occasional MiG-17, MiG-15 bis. So with that said, there wasn't really room for the Panther. There's also not really room for the Cougar, which to me is one of the most beautiful planes in the air. Absolutely stunning work on the model. But anyway, the F9F2 is getting down-tiered into 8.0. Now, all I said before about the Yak-23 going up to 8.0 applies to the Panther. But the Panther always used to fight at 9.0, so now it will not fight as much at 9.0. So out of that one game out of the 10, you'll actually have fun in the Panther. So instead of 10 games out of 10 being awful. So see it like that. The Panther, my general thoughts are, its guns aren't really suited for jet combat, it's not fast enough, the Sabre is just better in every way. The only reason to use it is in ground forces, and after some brainstorming, I mean, the 8.0 line for the Americans isn't the best. I mean, you have the T95E1, but I would rather run, and also, maybe the Vulcan. I'm not sure if the Vulcan's 8.3 or 8.0, but you could chuck that in there. Yeah. Maybe if you're really confident in your T95E1, you can chuck this in. It has good bombs on it. It's one of those planes where once you drop your bombs on the battlefield, you'll be able to fight when it comes to air on air. The major issue with it is radar guided AA. So at least it makes it more usable. Will it be as usable as something like a Sabre? No, but it gives it a place to be used, which is good. The F5 still sits where it is, though, which is very sad. So, now we get onto the ground forces. The ground forces is the meat and two biscuits of most of this. It seems like they are up-tiering the majority of high-tier stuff by 0.3, with a few exceptions, and this is to try and create a gap between the middling high tiers and the high tiers. So before, the top BR was 9.7, right? Now it's 10.0. So you can see this with the Abrams, the Type 90, and the Leopard 2A4. All of these now have gone to 10.0. So now the top tier bracket is 9.0 to 10.0. So that means that the fun BR is going to be 8.7 to 7.7. Or 8.7, 8.3, which most people are going to be using. What this means is it brings in tanks like the Baglet Panzer. It brings in tanks like the Chieftain Mark III, the Chieftain Mark V, to be fun, and it brings a few hopefuls to the mix. But let's go through them all. So you have the T-64A, it's going up to 9.3, the B is going up to 9.7, and then the Panzer II, just remember that is the B now being at 9.7 is basically the same as it being at 9.3, since it's 0.3 below the highest BR. The Panzer IIF is going up to 1.3, I think that's fine. It's slightly different to the Panzer IIC in that it has a slightly better gun on it. I mean, it's kind of fine. It was fine before that they were at the same BR. But now it's a slightly better version. So it really depends on how much you think that better version really matters. I think the 2C and the 2F are really good machines. So it'll still be combat effective at 1.3. At 2.3, the Germans have a good lineup as well. 1.7 and 2.3 are really good. So that just means that getting up tiered into it won't be too bad. Not that much of a change. The Brumbar is going down in BR to 4.7. I've only seen a few Brumbars, and Tazzy has one. Tazzy is a master of the Brumbar, but since he's a really good tanker, I don't normally take his his KDs and stuff as the average. Overall, the Brumbar suffers from the same issue that a lot of other vehicles, such as the Cent Mark V, Avery, the not the Conway, the Battle Barn, you know, the FV405, anything with a large caliber with either HE or Hesh, so even like the Stu 42. If you don't one-shot an enemy, you're kind of screwed. And because of the changes that happened a few years ago to HE and Hesh and so forth, you don't always one-shot enemies anymore. So this meant that SU-122s, Sherman 105s, SU-152s, they all fell out of favor because the HE wasn't as strong. The Brumbar's the same thing. So putting it down to 4.7, I mean, okay. The 4.7 lineup isn't really the one for Germany you want to be targeting. You either want to be running at 3.3 or 4.3. So you'll still get up-tiered in it, because obviously the 5.7 bracket is really popular for Germany. But if you want to run the Brumbar as its top BR at 4.7, its armor might actually be worth something, where before it wasn't. We're going to just have to see how that plays out. I'd need to see more Brumbars, I just don't see a lot. The Super Pershing is getting moved from 6.7 to 6.3. This is a wonderful change, because it means that the Super Pershing will actually be played now. The Americans have an amazing 6.7 lineup, and, well, when it comes to heavy tanks, you have the T-34 and the T-29, two of the best tier or at their BR tanks that there are in the game. They're amazing 6.7s, and that meant that the Super Pershing was just kind of sat there like, hey guys, how you doing? Look at my reload. And the T-34 and the T-29 just kind of laughed at it as they were bouncing shells off the front of it. The Super Pershing's armor, the extra armor, I still feel like it doesn't work properly, and the gun itself is not as good as the T-34s or T-29s, so it's already got two things going against it, plus the fact that its engine means that it's incredibly slow. So, with all those factors, it was very odd to me that the T-26 sat at the same BR as the T-34 and 29 so long. But it's nice to see that it's got down to. This means that you can make an interesting 6.3 lineup. So you've got the P-51H, you've got the Super Pershing, the M26, you can chuck in the Bulldog, so that's your three-man thing. Then you can chuck in an AD2 at 5.7, because I believe the AD4 might be high BR, but if it isn't high BR, let's say it's 6.0, you can throw that in as well. That's a really, really good 6.3 lineup. So with that said, the Super Pershing may actually have more of a place now. I mean, it definitely has more of a place. The issue is, will it get played more? That will have to be seen. I still don't know why you would take the Super Pershing over the T-34s and the T-29s, since it's going to get up-tiered quite a lot anyway. Like, it's the same issue the T-44 has, right? The T-44 gets up-tiered nearly every time into at least 6.7 or 7.0 or 7.3. So, with that said, I mean, it'll still get up-tiered, but at least it has more of a chance, and you can build a lineup around it, so you don't always have to up-tier it. So it's a good change. I'm just wondering what the ramifications are, and they're probably not very high, but it means we should see a few more. The two Stuarts are getting up-tiered. Good. They are absolute monsters. If you haven't used the Stuarts in a long time, their armor holds up, they're quick, their gun is good. It's as simple as that. The XM803 is going up by 0.3, same with the Rise, same with the MBT70, same with the A1A, well, not with the A1A1, same with the KPZ70 and the Rakuten Jagdpanzer Hot. So that's just to keep it in line with the BR changes that they're doing, changing stuff to 10.0. The two which I didn't mention there, the Leopard A1 is going from 8.3 to 9. When you look at the win rate of the Leopard A1, you can understand why. It's a very popular tank, and it's annihilating everything. And the reason for this is because of the APF SDS shell. It's also got speed behind it, it's got a good reload, it's got a stabilizer. The only thing it doesn't have is that good of armor, but it's good enough to be able to ricochet shells weirdly, just like the Leopard 2K does. And I understand a lot of people don't believe that it does this. It does this. It's very odd. Same with the Leopard 1's gun mantlet. The Leopard 1's gun mantlet can bounce chieftain shots. I've seen it do it. I've been in the Leopard while it's done it. It's very, very odd. But anyway, so 0.6 up for the A1A1. This puts it in a terrible position, and means that it's going to have to compete at 10-0, because as we talked about with the Jets, anything that is 9-0, 9-3, 9-7 will get scooped up in the 10-0 Leopard 2A4 Type 90 M1 Abrams, and this means that you are going to have to fight Abrams and Type 90s and maybe 2A4s if they keep the mixed battle thing going. So, good luck with that. It's not going to go too well, but at least it has some similar characteristics to the Leopard 2K, so it should be able to be maneuverable, it should be fast, its gun just won't be as good and won't scale as well. If it gets downed, it'll still be really good. Yeah, it's as simple as that. The A1A1's still a good vehicle, even at 9.0. It shows how dominant it's been, that they've gone up by 0.6. There's only 2 vehicles that have gone up by more than 1 point in BR, and that's the A1A1 and the 2K, and here I'll show you why. So we're going to go on a wonderful journey. Whoop. Now I understand a lot of you don't take, you say that Thunderskill isn't worth it. I can completely agree with you. I do have my own issues with it. What we're going to do is have a look. So, Leopard 2K, Leopard A1A1, and where is my 2A4? Have I missed it? 2A. Sorry about that. It's not the Leopard 1. Is nobody playing the Leopard 2? I mean, I suppose why would you play the Leopard 2 when you have 2 monstrous machines which don't get stuck in 4-man BRs? Anyway, we'll have a look at the 2K. So the 2K is at about 70% win rate right now. That's not bad. That's pretty good. That's incredibly good. And it's running at about a 1.5 KD. That's also pretty good compared to a lot of other tanks. So 70% win rate. A1A1, 60%. These numbers are insane. If you went to any other game and said to them that a machine or a character or anything had a 70% win rate, that thing would be instantly nerfed. Go and look at League of Legends. Go and look at Dota. Go and look at World of Tanks. There has only been a few tanks in World of Tanks which have ever had 70% win rates over months on end, which have not been changed. The majority of them get changed incredibly quickly. Now, I know it's harder to do in War Thunder, but we still have BRs, we still have economics, and that should annihilate the 2K, or at least put it to a point where it's not taking over battles as quick as it is. And 70% win rate is just insane. Absolutely insane. If we compare it to any other vehicle which is around there, let's say like the Abrams, which is a lot of the time what they face, 40%. I wonder who the Leopard 2Ks are annihilating. And then USSR, T64B, it's probably around 50. Yeah, see, 54%, so that's more normal. That's normally what you would see, and that's because half the time they're being put on German teams. 48% for the T64A, so once again, more normal, but the Abrams is at 40%. This is mainly down to the XM1s, and also the fact that all of the good players right now are playing Germany, because they want the 2A4, and they have done for months, and it's really annoying now. Yes, I'll get downvoted, have fun. So, when it comes to all of that stuff, yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory, really. That's why they're going up by 2 BR points, where everything else is not. So yeah, the A1A1 is, to me, if it's going to get up to it, as I said, into 10 a lot, so it's going to be useless in those matches, but it'll still be fine everywhere else. The Leopard 2K being at 9.7, I think that's completely justified. It is better than the MBT-70, has a much better gun than it, has better armor. Once again, it's more bouncy, and also speed is very good. I believe it's slightly worse than the KPZ, but still really, really good. It's got the best gun in game as well. I know a lot of people argue with that, especially with the Type 90 coming in, and that's completely fine. I put those guns basically on par with each other, the 120s, so yeah. And it's had it in the game for months more than the Type 90, meaning that people have got used to it, and they're also using it to grind out the Leopard 2A4. The KPZ and the Rakuten, well, I've gone through them, they're all just going up by 0.3, so just to keep it in line. The Comet is going down to 5 from 5.3, and the issue with the Comet is the same issue as all British tanks. It's heavily reliant on its sabot. The Comet doesn't have a back gear. It kind of does have a trolley turret, because there's a lot of angles that you can bounce off. That's why I like the Comet. But a lot of people have figured out where to shoot it, and that means that it gets the Tiger treatment, where it just gets shot and killed in one shot all the time. So you've got to be sneaky with it. The issue with the Comet is you can't really do that, because reverse gears don't really exist for British, and also the sabot is once again orange in crew. So it's not killing crew all the time, and it's not blowing up tanks as well when it hits ammunition. So because of this, the Comet is put in a bad position, meaning that you have to rely on factors which are kind of out of your control. So the amount of damage that your sabot does, or where your team's going to be, you have to be more supportive, and putting it down by 0.3 I think is fine. Hopefully this means that the Challenger, once again, the mid-tier Challenger, gets lowered, because that's worse than the Comet, and and it's not in a great place. The Chieftain Mark 10 is put up to 0.3, Challenger 0.7, Mark 3 8.3, and Mark 5 8.7. So once again, this is to keep it in line with all the others. The Challenger not going to 10.0 is nice, because it means that they realize that it's not on the same level as the 2A4, the Type 90, and the Abrams. I understand that before it was at 9.3 instead of 9.7, but it means now that the gap is, as I said, at 8.7 and below. It means that stuff like the Chieftain Mark III, the Challenger, will get downtier more than something which is at 8.7 or which is at 10.0. So at least it's a little help. It's a little nice thing, right? I still don't. I think the Chieftain being at 8 would have been fine. I don't think it should have been up-tiered. It just means now that it'll face. It won't face Leopard 2Ks, which was its biggest issue before, because 2Ks just annihilate the Mark III and the Mark V, because they completely counter the playstyle, right? They have the gun to penetrate it. Even through the turrets, they were able to get around them. They just annihilate the defensive playstyle on the majority of maps. So it's nice to see that the Mark III has a little bit of breathing room from the 2K. Still has to do with A1A1s, but I'm fine with that. I'm personally okay with that. The Iron Duke, we've already talked about, and the AMX-40 is now at 9.7, and the 3 top-tier tanks, the 2A4, Type 90, and M1 Abrams, are now at 10.0. Also, with that said, the T-64B being at 9.7 is also in the same position as the Challenger. So what does this all mean? Well, first of all, what it speaks to is the fact that 3 nations now have top-tier tanks, and 2 nations which have their... 3 nations which have their ground forces territories, so this including Italy, do not have top-tier tanks. So that we have the Challenger, the AMX-40, and the T-64B all bringing up in 9.7. So to me, what this means, especially since Russia is seen as one of the major nations alongside America and Germany, we're going to get a new Russian tank at 10.0 in the next updates. Now, whether this is a T-72 or a T-80, my guess is a T-72, but we're going to have to see. That will be good. It will mean that people are on an equal playing field at the top, and by equal I mean semi-equal. And also it's going to be interesting to see if they keep the limiter in for now 10.0 tanks instead of 9.7, or whether they keep the limiter at 9.7, meaning that you can only have 4 9.7 or 10.0 vehicles, or you can only have 4 10.0 vehicles. It's going to be interesting to see if they keep it. I personally, at the moment, would, and then hopefully when people spread out on the tiers, which doesn't seem to be happening, because guess what? People want to win, then they'll take it away. and maybe they'll do that. Maybe they won't, maybe they will. We'll see. Overall, I agree with the majority of the changes. Some of them I feel are redundant, but some, I hope what comes along with it is either modification changes, the amount of research it takes, so like with the Mark III Chieftain and the Mark V Chieftain and even the Mark X Chieftain. And then with the repair costs, the Key 84 High and then the G56. I hope to see them. I really do. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a like if you did, and if you have any comments, chuck them in down below. I'll see you next time.